then, welcome to Thursday's edition of The Brief. I'm Jessy Chahal. Thanks for joining me. Now, in this edition, tech analyst Bobby Varanasi joins us to talk more about Malaysia's goal of becoming a high-tech country come 2030. That's the year 2030. And later on, Shazman Rahimi from the Lost Food Project will be joining us as well. But before that, as usual, here are some updates from the Parliament and from our leaders as well. Now, a total of 86.4 million has been channeled to close to 14,000 SMEs and medium-tier companies. They are known as MTCs. So that's SMEs and medium-tier companies in the form of grants and loans for subscription to the digitization services under the National Economic Recovery Plan, or otherwise known as Penjana. Now, according to the Finance Minister, the government has allocated 700 million ringgit to assist and encourage SMEs as well as MTCs, that's medium tier companies, to digitize their operations and use trade channels as well. And so we also know that the government has allocated 600 million ringgit for SMEs and micro SMEs under the Penjana Tourism Sector Fund. So a lot of allocations being given on the back of SOPs being released, state borders being opened as well. We do hope to see much more economic activity in the next few months. Well, in a Twitter post, the health minister had this to say. He says in less than 2 months, 80% of those aged between 12 and 17 will have been inoculated with at least one dose of the Pfizer vaccine. This rate, he says, is one of the fastest vaccination rollouts in the world. According to the data shared by Kyrie, 80.2% of those aged between 12 and 17 have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine as of yesterday. These numbers we're bringing you are as updated as they can be, given the last entry or the last report that has been submitted by the Ministry of Health. Now, moving on to the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, Mohd, they say they're optimistic about implementing various policies and initiatives to turn Malaysia into a high technology country by 2030. Now, that's not too long away. The Minister of Mohd adds that this plan targets the creation of an economic ecosystem driven by science, technology and innovation. Now, this will facilitate as well local technology development by creating economic opportunities in things like artificial intelligence or AI, the IoT or Internet of Things, and blockchain technology as well. If you're one to closely follow some of the trends in fintech, you'll also realize that blockchain seems to be gaining quite a lot of interest. Well, recently, Mohd has outlined several initiatives with the goal of turning Malaysia into a high-tech country by the year 2020. But if we were to break this down, what does it actually mean? And I guess more importantly, how can we achieve this mission? Well, let's turn to tech analyst Bobby Varanasi to tell us more. Thanks for being with us today, Bobby. Such a pleasure to speak to you once again. Of course, we rope you in when we need you to make sense and really break it down for us. So we know that this is now the goal by 2030. As I had mentioned earlier as well, targeting the creation of an ecosystem driven by science, technology, and innovation. So let's begin with that. What does it mean to be a high technology country? And further, what are some of the benchmarks that we'll need to meet to recognize that we are in the right direction, Bobby?
Thank you for having me. The basic definition of a high-tech country is nothing more than enabling every single industrial and economic sector with technology as an underpinning enabler, right? It is not about just throwing in a bunch of computers and software. It is about transforming the way that particular industry works, and it's measured. And when you talk about benchmarks, Jessy, the measurement is not in terms of comparing between country A and country B, as much as it is about what is the elimination of wastage from the old processes to the new that you have leveraged using technology, and what is the new value you have created that you could not have gotten to in the past in the absence of those technologies. Those two are your underpinning components of defining if any sector and consequently an entire nation is high technology or not.
Right. So, when we look to the future, and of course, that is the direction, we always talk about the same old things, very generally speaking, science, technology, innovation. But in your opinion, Bobby, what are some other new areas we can venture into to reach this high tech goal? Perhaps green technology, Internet of Things,
Yeah.
better AI, and also to look to work with other countries.
Yeah. Two parts to this question, right? Let's first and foremost, I completely agree with you. The fatigue with STI conversation, tech and tech and tech for the better part of 15 years that I've been here, there is no consequential impact. But what I'm loving it in just the last month or so, the launch of the 1010 My Style, right? My STIE, whether you call it STI or STI, it's a beautiful framework. Finally, the things that I have been talking about in your program as well, Jesse, for the better part of 5 years is the confluence between how technology enables sectors and the 1010, model is actually, I think, one of the most robust and very timely. Maybe this should have been done a decade ago, but
Okay, so
we've
can
got
I
it
just
there.
jump in there? Can you briefly explain quite loosely this 10-10 approach?
So the 1010 approach is technically there are 10 technologies that are going to be in focus by the country, and there are 10 sectors that these technologies will have to be deployed into. So what the country has done is, and it's taken inputs from a recent World Bank report, it's less than 2 years old, which actually showed an alarming decline in R&D spend in the country. We were at a 1.4% of GDP in 2016, and we went down to less than 1%. And now the minister has put up a very large goal of getting it back to 2.5% of the GDP. But bigger challenge is not that. What we have seen is a significant decline in R&D investments in applied research. What it means is we can talk about technology to kingdom come, but if it is not going to be applied in sectors so that it creates value, then it's just like a dog chasing its own tail, right? And therefore, the 1010 my steam model actually brings logic in terms of applicability. And I think it's a phenomenal piece. Quickly on your second component, what is missing? I would love to see focus on two things, sustainability and governance. We have not seen conversations around that. I hope that will come as a natural consequence.
Sustainability and governance around this as well. Okay, Bobby, not much time left on the clock, but still need to ask you some very important questions. We speak of AI and blockchain. What's that current situation here in Malaysia? Are we prepared, or perhaps a better word is, are we equipped for these new innovations to thrive?
Are we prepared? Possibly, yes. Are we equipped? Not yet, because we are not seeing use cases. Our problem is again that it comes back to that mice type piece. Where do we apply? Tech for tech's sake is useless. So once we start getting enforcements, right? If the grant, if let's say if a funding organization says, if you don't apply AI in this particular sector, I won't give you money. That is when you'll start seeing value creating. Today, if they say take the money just to build an AI application, it's pointless. So we are
Okay,
not ready, but we have to get there.
Okay, we have to get there. Now, let's look at a
Yeah.
classic sector here in Malaysia, and that has always generally been agriculture as well. Does a high tech country mean we stray away from agriculture, or would that be our benchmark of success in terms of being prepared, being equipped, and applying the technology that we procure or that we innovate ourselves?
the world the world's food production situation is disastrous, and there is no way any country can stay away from agriculture. They may reduce the contribution of agriculture into the overall economy, but they cannot not do with it, right? Now Malaysia has been a net importer of food. If we can set a goal to say that we're just going to be a producer that is equivalent to the consumption in the country, we are good enough. Now, that is where technology can help. The focus is on yield increase. We are sitting on some of the most fertile lands on the planet. Why should we be importing food? Now, second point, and I like the fact that in the 1010 model, agriculture is a key sector, and I'm glad they did not exclude that.
Okay, so
So,
if
yeah.
we could apply any economic model at this point, Bobby, who can we learn from? Who can we duplicate, imitate from? Models such as the German model, the Scandinavian model, for example.
Yeah, you can replicate all of those models. And today, and this is not marketing, but there is a company in Malaysia called Zero Hunger, right? And these are the people who are focusing on actually creating urban farms. All of us are sitting on, rooftops, massive homes. So why can't we have our own urban farms? It's a phenomenal model in Malaysia. It's just, it's a startup, but the level of passion and commitment they're bringing in terms of creating the urban areas into farmland, into having people produce their own food and then, selling the excess, right, into the marketplace. They are being the aggregators, they are the suppliers, they are the consolidators. And underpinning is all technology. And that's a beautiful model. And it's a Malaysian company, right? Sharizal, my good friend, is actually running it. I love speaking with him every week, and that's the kind of models we need, right? And so agriculture is not just farmland. Trust me, it can be in your own backyard, in my own backyard.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bobby. It's been a pleasure speaking to you and hearing some of your points on the goal of Malaysia wanting to be a high tech country by 2030, what we need to be cognizant of, aware of, and where we need to be headed as well. We'll speak to you again. In the meantime, do take care. That was Bobby Varanasi, a technology analyst, weighing in, of course, on Malaysia's goal to be a high tech country in the very near future. Now, let's look at some of the movements in the economic sector in terms of the markets. The labor market conditions, for example, is expected to improve moderately in the second half of this year, and that performance is expected to continue into next year as well. We are in the last quarter of 2021. Has it been that fast? The year has passed. Of course, this notes and this updates has come to us from the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, telling us a little bit about market conditions. But from the stats department, they say Malaysia's leading index improved in August, and that shows that the economy is likely to pick up in the next few coming months. The Prime Minister has announced the establishment of the Regional Planning Committee for states in Northern Peninsular Malaysia. Now, he says the MRFN, or the National Physical Planning Council, has discussed 8 agendas under provisions of the Town and Country Planning Act 1976. The RFN4 determines the direction of physical development, including economic, environmental, and social, for all planning areas in Peninsular Malaysia as well as in Labuan. Those are some updates there coming to you as we get them. Now, the trade group coalition Industries Unite has appealed to the government to allow pubs and nightclubs to reopen in states that are under phase 4 of the National Recovery Plan today. In an open letter to the Prime Minister and to the National Security Council, they have said that all businesses should be allowed to operate, as 94% of the country's adult population has already been fully vaccinated. They also have stressed that the resumption of business should be subject to strict compliance with COVID-19 SOPs. Now, in their letter to the Prime Minister, they also estimated that at least 150,000 to 250,000 jobs are currently still at stake, which would mean then that will place unnecessary burdens on the government to support the unemployed. We'll have to see if the government will be looking at this letter and monitoring that closely as well. Now, from the white flag campaign to just buying water for someone who needs it, the people have stepped up and they did the necessary, especially in the thick of the MCO. We saw social media campaigns, we saw communities, tamans, we saw companies going down to the streets as well and just helping a neighbor, a loved one, a good friend, perhaps even a stranger. We also saw many volunteers. But as we look towards a brighter tomorrow, we cannot forget that the future must be sustainable as well. In my conversation with Bobby earlier, he did mention zero hunger. As we aim to be a high tech country, we have to solve problems, basic problems, such as food wastage and widespread hunger as well. I'd like to bring in now the Lost Food Project, and our representative joining us today is Syazwan Mokhtar, the General Manager of the Lost Food Project, to tell us a little bit more about what they do and how we can all help. Syazwan, welcome. It's good to speak to you. The Lost Food Project, it is an NGO here in Malaysia. One of its main aims is to rescue quality, nutritious food that would otherwise end up in a landfill being totally wasted. And what you do with this food is you redistribute it along with other essential items to those who need it the most. So this idea to rescue lost food came about in about 2015. Tell us more.
Yep. Hi, first of all. Hi, Jessy. And thanks for having me. Yes, you rightly put it there that the Lawsuit Project is an NGO food bank. We are established in Malaysia back in 2015. In 2016, we formally registered ourselves and so on. So what we do basically is to rescue surplus food, meaning that food which would otherwise be thrown away to landfill. If you speak to supermarkets, manufacturers, suppliers, they always there comes a point when they have to clear stock, or new stock comes in, or new production, and so on and so forth. So the old stock, which are still in date, still quality food, these are the ones that we collect. We have agreements with all these food donors, our partners, basically to collect all this food and then distribute to those who are in need. So those who are in need basically are those living in B40 communities, the PPRs, the cluster homes, and also the charities and NGOs, which are doing the good work of caring for all these people, regardless of background, whether you're elderly, refugees, orphanages, and so on and so forth.
Shazwan, the good work, that's always the path less walked, perhaps, if I could use that example. There are always many challenges in doing things like this, especially reaching those, who really need help in terms of searching for who they are, where they are, and getting to them at the right time. What would you say are some of the challenges in this outreach program and project?
I mean, this outreach program has always relied mainly on volunteers and also partners. You again we rightly put it there. Outreach is one thing that we always is a bit concerned of, because we don't know who, and these people don't necessarily register themselves for aid. They don't necessarily request for aid, but we have partners on the ground that are doing the good work as well. So we partner ourselves with more than 70 charities and NGOs. We are partner ourselves with residents association, with parliamentarians, local governments, and so on and so forth, agencies, so that we can actually reach out to these people. The issue with the other side of it is that getting donations of food coming in, because we rely on surplus mostly, and this year alone we've collected more than 1 million kilogram of surplus food, and convincing our partners, convincing new donors to donate food, that there are no liabilities, that there are sustainability grounds to do this as well, because we are not only feeding the hungry but also hopefully saving the environment from all this food wastage.
Absolutely, it is a two-prong approach, win-win approach in that as well. Let's look at some stats. It is said that an average of one third of the food produced around the world is either lost or wasted. Your website states that 3,000 tons of edible food is thrown away each day in Malaysia. I can't even wrap my
Yeah.
head around it. How do you arrive at this number? And walk us through how the Lost Food Project sees this as an opportunity to further reduce food wastage and redistribution.
Basically, those stats, if you Google them, you can read them from studies by UN. The 3,000 daily, is a study done by SW Corp. In fact, there was a new study reported this year by SW Corp that increased the number from 3,000 daily to 4,000 daily over the past, since the past 2 to 3 years. So these numbers to us represent a disconnect between those who are in need and those who are wasting. And being able to save 4,000 tons of food daily, for example, it's like being able to feed 3 million people, and that's the whole entire KL population, for example. And this is something that we see as an opportunity, that definitely, because it allows us to tap on this resource that otherwise would have been thrown away. And we feel that people talk about food insecurity as a matter of maybe increasing food production and so on, but again, we alone as a small NGO, we've rescued more than 1 million kilogram of food this year. We rescue like the breads from all our partners, more than 6 ton on a monthly basis. So these are food which are still of good quality, and the moment we are able to collect them, the moment we get more partners in, we are able to feed more people, and we feel that this is a solvable issue that everyone can be part of.
That's right. Very quickly, Shazwan, tell us how the public can support the Lost Food Project and what is your message to viewers today?
Basically, the main thing with this is that household waste are the greatest contributor to food waste, especially, and food waste is is like 48% of landfill waste. If we are able to reduce food waste at home, if we are able to kind of conserve our waste, whether it's surplus at home and so on, we should be able to save a lot more food. And it's not just that. You can also uh, put yourself out there, help those who are in need. If there are neighbors who are in need of food, you might not know about it, but apps like kitajaga.co, for example, was developed
Yeah.
for this particular reason, and this is something that we have to make use of, especially during this time and age. At the time of pandemic, we are connected still, and we have so many different avenues that we can write on in order to help each other out. So that's very important. And visit our website, visit our social media pages. You can find so many information there, and how you can join our cause.
Shazwan, thank you. And as I always tell all the silent heroes, the unsung heroes who are doing the work on the ground, people like you and your team and so many other volunteers across the nation, thank you and all the best. And we're always here to lend a helping hand and support. We'll see you soon. Do take care. That was
Thank
Shazwan
you.
Mokhtar, the General Manager of the Lost Food Project, TLPF. Please check them out online on the social media as well to see how you can be part of this initiative. Now, here's a quick news in brief. The health minister has said that the ministry will use Pfizer vaccines to boost doses for those over the age of 60 who are fully vaccinated with the Sinovac vaccine. This booster program, in fact, is not waiting any longer. It's going to begin today. And also, the minister has emphasized that the WHO has approved the so called mix and match approach to vaccination in order to generate stronger immune responses. I know this was a point of contention before. There was a lot of confusion about whether it is safe to mix and match or not. But at this point of time, as we understand it, WHO has approved this. Now, those who do qualify for booster doses will be notified via the My Sejahtera application, and you may also receive an SMS directly. Now, still with the health ministry, the minister, KJ, says that the ministry is conducting a dual fix method to address the unsolicited OTPs and spam emails being sent out from the My Sejahtera system. He admits that complaints on the matter are still coming into the Ministry of Health, and just earlier this week on Wednesday, the My Sejahtera team revealed that its check-in QR registration was misused by malicious scripts to send OTPs to mobile numbers. So this, of course, is causing a bit of interruption there, but the ministry says that they are on it and they will be looking into it as soon as possible. Moving on, according to the Secretary General of Bersatu, Datuk Seri Alexander Nantalinggi, Bersatu has now identified its candidates for the 12th Sarawak state elections. The names have been submitted to the GPS or Gabungan Party Sarawak chairman, who is also president of Bersatu, and the Sarawak chief minister. Moving on, the number of flood victims in Malacca continue to rise this morning, while the situation of flash floods that hit several areas in Selangor is improving. We do know it's the rainy season, and boy, does it pour. In Malacca, for example, the number of flood evacuees rose to 1,105 people from 283 families as of 8 a.m. earlier today, compared to 932 victims from 249 families at 4 p.m. yesterday. And in Selangor, the State Fire and Rescue Department Director Nurazam Khamis has told us that the flood situation in several areas continues to improve as of 8 a.m. earlier today as well. Now, taking you over to what's happening internationally, here's a snapshot of international news. The World Health Organization is calling on the world's 20 richest nations to step up donations of COVID-19 doses to the global south, where vaccinations lag. In a press conference, its Director General, Tedros, has stressed that the G20 countries must fulfill their dose sharing commitments immediately. Now, apparently, there's still a shortfall of about 500 million vaccines to reach WHO's 40% vaccination target in all countries. If we look at that number globally, we still have some way to go. According to the ex-UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown, 240 million doses are lying unused in the West. And in EU, leaders lock horns over response to energy price spike. The EU leaders are debating or will debate their response to soaring energy prices, which have exposed familiar rifts over the bloc's climate change goals. Now, leaders say they will discuss a toolbox, quote unquote, that the European Commission published last week, which outlines the measures governments can take. And from Russia, its president said yesterday that the Western-backed military development of Ukraine posed a serious threat to Russia. This comes just 2 days after the US Defense Secretary staged a show of support for Kyiv and encouraged its aspiration to join NATO. Putin has consistently made it clear that membership for Ukraine would be a red line for Moscow. The US has been Ukraine's most powerful backer since Russia's annexation of Crimea. And staying with Russia, it was reported that there was a record 1,036 coronavirus related deaths in the last 24 hours, as well as 36,339 new infections. This has forced some health restrictions to be reinstated, including work from home orders and 4 months of stay home restrictions for unvaccinated senior citizens as well. Moving on very quickly to what's happening in Dubai. Well, Dubai officially inaugurated the world's largest and tallest Ferris wheel yesterday as the city seeks to reinforce its status as a major tourism hub. Located in the Blue Waters Island, the Dubai Eye, or known as Ain Dubai in Arabic, stands at 250 meters tall. It can take about close to 1,700 visitors on one rotation. That lasts about half an hour. It is the latest attraction in Dubai after the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum opened earlier this week as well. All right, very quickly, what's happening on Twitter? A hashtag rape joke is not funny. This is trending after National Diver had post of a tweet about the jokes made by her former coach in the national team. We're talking about Pandalela Rinong. This comes after the public outroar over actor Fauzi Nawawi's remarks on a talk show recently. Remember that hashtag rape joke is not funny. Please look it up as well and contribute to that conversation. In lighter news, there's a new Tom Holland movie. Netizens are buzzing about the trailer, Uncharted, that was released globally earlier today as well. If you're a fan, you might want to check that out. And in sports badminton, people are eagerly awaiting Lee Zijia's quarter final match against home favorite and Olympic champion Victor Eskelsen happening today in the hashtag Denmark Open 2020. That's something that's trending as well. Hey, that's all for today's edition of The Brief. We've covered quite a bit. The Department of Irrigation and Drainage has advised residents in low-lying areas, especially those in flood hotspots and those living near rivers, to please remain vigilant and to prepare for the inter-monsoon period that's happening now right up till early November. If you wish to obtain any more information, Public Info Banjir website, you can check that out or go to their app, My Public Info Banjir app as well. Remember, stay safe and stay home. I'm Jessy Chahal. Thanks for watching.